Welcome to the session. We're so glad to have you here. This is the lunch hour session featuring the San Diego Trafficking Prevention Collective, and we're just waiting for everyone to get into the room, and we will get started in 1 minute. Keeping on schedule here today in our wonderful world of online conferencing. I know I'm waiting for our final panelists to get in, having a little bit of a glitch, but we will go ahead and get started with our presentation, knowing that our angels in the back end are going to figure out how to get Mary Ellen Barrett into the session. Welcome, everybody. We're so happy to have you here. I know we have just been packing this day full of content with no break. Hopefully you've had at least a minute to stretch and walk around and get something to eat. We can't tell if you're eating right now, so no problem if this is your lunch break, but we're really happy to have you here. And I know that all of us are thrilled to have this opportunity to share with you about the San Diego Trafficking Prevention Collective. Just a few notes as we get started. If you are receiving continuing ed, you've been hearing this message all along, but you do need to stay through the entire duration of this hour session and also fill out the quick evaluation form at the end. That is, those two requirements are how you qualify for the CEs for this session. And please go ahead and put your questions in the Q&A part on the Whova platform, or if you're just through Zoom, you can also put them there. We will not have a lot of time for questions, but we will have some time at the end. You are also able to connect with all of us who are presenting today through the Whova platform. You can send us direct messages, and I know that any of us would be willing to talk to you after for follow-up information. Let's see. So with that, I just want to jump in. We do have some learning objectives. They are also on the abstract for this session, but these are the 3 learning objectives that we're going to be hitting on today during this presentation. We have a lot of information to present to you, and we're excited to have this opportunity. So I am going to just give a little intro on the San Diego Trafficking Prevention Collective. It is a public-private partnership that provides end-to-end educational programming to protect San Diego school children from the exploitation of sex trafficking. What happened to form the San Diego Trafficking Prevention Collective is a collaborative of 3 nonprofits, Global Communities, 3 Strands Global Foundation, and Point Loma Nazarene University Center for Justice and Reconciliation, and the Office of the San Diego District Attorney, underwritten by a grant from the UBS Optimist Foundation, a 4-year grant of which we're in year 4. So it's 3 curriculums with 1 collective purpose, reaching out into our community to get as far and wide and deep as possible and reach as many of our kids as possible with our programming. The team that's here today to talk to you about our work. I'm so glad to see your face, Mary Ellen. We were sweating that a little bit. So happy to have you here. I am Kim Berry-Jones. You've seen me at other places today, but I am here from the university, the Center for Justice and Reconciliation, but also get to represent the No More program, which is one of the 3 prevention curriculums that's a part of the collective. And then we have Stacy Williams. You can wave your hand, from Global Communities. Global Communities is the backbone organization for our Collective Impact Project, and they also run the Roots program, one of the 3 prevention curriculums. And then Ashley Bryant, who is the founder and CEO at 3 Strands Global Foundation, and she represents the Protect curriculum, which is the 3rd curriculum partner in this work. And then last but not least, Mary Ellen Barrett. I know that DA Summer Stephan mentioned you earlier today, one of our champions in our community from the San Diego Office of the District Attorney. And she is our liaison into our public-private partnership. So we will just jump in with that. So the San Diego Trafficking Prevention Collective has key performance indicators that we're very focused on in our work. We're going to be getting into some of the other details, but we wanted to start out with talking about the fact that we are following 5 primary key performance indicators in this work. And one of them is tracking how many school districts have the protocols in place for what to do when a child is identified as at risk or being trafficked. The second KPI we're tracking the number of unique schools that have active collective programs. That could be one or more of the 3 collective programs in the school that we're tracking. And then we're also tracking the number of schools and the number of school and program staff that are trained across the region in the red flags and recruitment tactics involved in trafficking. We are, for KPI number 4, we are tracking the number of students that are participating in collectives trafficking prevention programs. Again, any one of the 3. We also track when there is saturation and students are able to access more than one of the programs. And then finally, we're also tracking parents and community members who are reached with our trafficking awareness programs. I'm going to kick it to Stacy now to talk a little bit about why this is a collective impact project and why that matters.
So why and what is collective impact? I just want to start off with this quote. The complex nature of most social programs bellies the idea that any single program or organization, however well managed and funded, can single-handedly create lasting, large-scale change. So collective impact really describes an intentional way of working together and sharing information for the purpose of solving a complex problem. Proponents of collective impact believe that the approach is more likely to solve complex programs than if a single nonprofit were to approach the same problem on its own. And while collective impact seems similar to what we all like to think of as collaboration, there are definitely certain characteristics that distinguish collective impact and make them successful. And up here, you will see these 5 conditions of collective impact that were put out by Stanford Social Innovation Review. This is adapted from that channeling change, making collective impact work. The first one is that common agenda, that all participants have a shared vision for change, including a common understanding of the problem and a joint and committed approach to solving it through agreed upon actions. That we know that nothing happens if you don't have that shared vision or a common language to move forward. And as Kim talked about in the beginning, we do have this shared vision of protecting every student from exploitation through this end-to-end prevention education program. Mutually reinforcing activities is the second one, are described as that they're designed to remind all participants that they depend on each other to move the initiative forward. They dovetail off of each other, and they ensure that the activities of the participants are aligned, directed towards shared measurements, and are making progress toward the common goals. The third one being continuous communication, where consistent and open communication is needed across the many players to build trust, assure mutual objectives, and create common motivation. The fourth, shared measurement, and we talked about earlier, our shared KPIs, collecting data and measuring results consistently across all participants ensures that the efforts remain aligned and participants can learn from each other as well as hold each other accountable. And the fifth being the backbone support, which is creating and managing the collective impact requires an organization to serve as a backbone for the entire initiative. They focus on building a culture that encourages information sharing, supports resolving conflicts so that trusted relationships emerge among participants. It serves as an administrative role and may also facilitate or attract financial resources to the collective. And there is a sixth one that has sort of been added. It's not on this chart, but we also talk about equity. And equity, if we really want collective impact initiatives to make lasting change, they must develop targeted strategies that specifically take into account inequity in communities and underlying advantages that some people have, as well as disadvantages that other groups face. So how do we make it work at the San Diego Trafficking Prevention Collective? We have a collective charter which delineates roles and responsibilities, accountability and procedures for conflict resolution, the public-private partnership, shared goals, the system of shared measurement that we spoke about. We've established a trafficking working group where we have weekly meetings with program teams from all three of our programs that make up the collective to update each other, review data, to troubleshoot, provide support, and innovate or pivot where necessary. We've established a leadership group, which is made up of representatives of the three nonprofits as well as the district attorney's office. And we meet either twice a month or monthly, depending on what's happening. And we've also established a system of communication, trust, and transparency. That is definitely, something that takes a lot of work, but it is absolutely necessary to make this work impactful. So what have we learned? We've learned that changes to practice generally happen at a later stage, a stage of a collective impact. So you need to build in time to pilot, test, iterate, and scale in different ways throughout the life cycle of your program. There's an ongoing need to evaluate who is at our collective table to ensure that we're providing access and equitable solutions to participants. Our collective table, we talk about survivor leaders, LGBTQ+ community, underrepresented populations, and the need to provide continuous resources and training for collective members from the communities that we serve. And then we also understand that the change outside begins on the inside. So what are some of our wins and our challenges? Operating as a collective voice to implement programming is a win and also a challenge, three organizations coming together. Our shared measurement, pivoting to virtual trauma-informed programming during COVID-19, identifying champions as partners who understand the issue and invested in getting prevention efforts into the schools and community. Through the collaboration and partnership, the San Diego County Office of Education has leveraged the work of the collective, and they were able to secure a human trafficking youth prevention education, the H-type demonstration grant, to do targeted human trafficking education in the schools, increasing sustainability of prevention education across the region. Challenges, every district and school is its own kingdom with different guidelines and strategies, making it somewhat complex to be able to get into schools. And COVID has definitely created a new set of challenges as educators try to balance time constraints of educational loss, as well as the need of students and valued external programs. And of course, sustainability. Funding is always an issue within any kind of programming, but especially collective impact.
And so now Ashley's going to jump in. Just want to make sure you're unmuted, Ashley, to talk about data.
Yeah, thanks so much, Kim. Thanks, Stacy, for that. So the importance of data in prevention programs is really paramount. And so for this morning, or actually this afternoon, I guess, I'm going to talk about a little bit of how we track data. Kim talked about all of our programming is tracking data. For us at 3 Strands this last couple years, and specifically even this last semester, we've been tracking the Protect program, which is our responsibility within the collective. So we believe as a collective that we really need to have this 4-pronged approach, right, where the protocol happens, the training happens, education happens, and research, and our collective really falls within the education space with No More and the Roots program, and the training space as Protect, as well as the education space as Protect. So to reframe it, training has the Protect program, and then the education or curriculum to the students can be Protect, as well as No More, as well as Roots. And so all the collective kind of fits within this 4-pronged approach. And then the research component is obviously really vital, not only through our 3 programs, but as a collective as we look and analyze that data. Today, you go on to the next slide. I'm actually going to be talking about some of the data that we've received in San Diego with our collective. So we actually in the Protect program, we deliver the training, that first prong that comes after protocol, through an online system called Journey Do. And this training, then the teachers can be able to go through. They have a 101 to 103, which really covers not only human trafficking and exploitation, but also covers trauma-informed care, as well as what do I do if and when I identify someone who may be being trafficked or exploited. So all of that is what the training component is for the collective. Our teachers, counselors, and all staff can go through that. And then after that, then they will actually have access to, as you can see on the slide, the curriculum, which is all the way from kindergarten through our 12th graders. Okay, next slide. So this actually just tells you a little bit deeper. And when we talk about training with the collective, it really is this journey to protect our students, right? And so we want to make sure that they understand how to recognize, and you can see the objectives listed there. And then we want to make sure they know how to respond, again, with the objectives of really learning about vulnerability, that they are trauma informed, they're looking for behavioral signs, as well as how to communicate with open conversations to our youth if they identify something that seems suspicious. I mean, I should just also say that if there is a suspicion of trafficking, we must always report. That is something that we talk about at the collective, is the importance of suspicion means that we need to actually report that. And then that is our 101 to our 103 component, which is report and prevent, right? The whole purpose of the collective is to prevent trafficking, to go upstream and make sure that we, beyond a shadow of a doubt, can stop the trafficking or the exploitation before it starts. So this is the training component. Okay, next slide. And then this is the actual curriculum. So when Kim and Stacy talk about, what is this collective and how are we going through? So you'll know that protocol, that training, and then the actual curriculum piece, right? So as 3 programs, we are looking at how do we reach the student on different levels, and also from a multidisciplinary way, how do we connect with them differently too? So for us on the Protect side, it really is kindergarten through 3rd, 4th through 6th, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and all these different areas to make it so that we're following educational outcomes of helping the students be informed, that they're safe, they're valued, they're aware, and they're empowered, right? The stair-step effect, all knowing that the Protect circle or logo right there is sort of that training that comes in. And then there are those for Know More as well as for Roots, so that the collective is really holistically looking at the child in their entirety, rather than just looking in one dimension. Okay, next slide. So on the Protect side, we've reached over 500,000 students. And I think that this not only helps in the collective, Stacy talked about in her discussion, how do you build as a collective on your strengths, right? How do you take the strengths that you have? And out in the world, Protect has quite a bit of data on who we've already connected with. So that helps us. We know that students after Protect report that they can define human trafficking, and that they also can protect themselves and others from exploitation in those 2 data points. Really important for us to understand that as we continue to hone our curriculum and our training, so that we can make sure we're on track. We want to always be flexible and agile to the data, so that we are really having the impact that we want. Okay, next slide. So let's look at the data together. So these are 3 questions that I pulled actually pre and post, so that you all could see, what are we looking at? We know that in nearly half of all child trafficking cases, the trafficker is a family member from the Polaris Project. And so how do we actually make sure that we go about helping our adults understand that? And this shows you that before they kind of 26% said that, but afterwards 77%. And you can see the other answers there. The other thing is that we feel it is incredibly important as a collective for us to be able to have the definition of human trafficking as a consistent definition that all of us are using in the world. So that includes that it is force, fraud, and coercion, not manipulation, exploitation, or abuse, or robbery, or trickery, or concealment, or smuggling, kidnapping, or deception, right? So we want to see that they are understanding that. And if not, then how can we actually build different skill building activities or training to help them understand that definition? And then the last one is that mandated reporter, which to me is incredibly important. How confident are you in reporting the suspected trafficking is happening in your classroom? And 97% of those who have gone through the collective training say that they are somewhat or very confident, which is for us a big win. Okay, next slide. So let's look at another teacher question as well as a student question. Then the final one will be a student question. So when we look at increased understanding of human trafficking, which is part of our theory of change as a collective, we want them to have an increased understanding of human trafficking, teachers, counselors, staff, as well as students. So this is a question: have you noticed signs of trafficking in your school? So you can see probably yes. as a pre, which is the teal color, and then the gold as 21%, and then definitely yes also goes up, and probably not, definitely not go down, which is what we want to see. So that's actually good data to be able to analyze. And then from the student's perspective, do you know how to contact the trafficking hotline? Do you know how traffickers recruit? Do you know the sentence for trafficking of minors, and how to protect yourself online? So constantly tracking our pre and post with our students and our teachers as a collective to understand, are we actually making that impact? Is the data telling us what we want, or do we need to adjust, right? Next slide. And then this is a really important piece of our theory of change, not only increasing understanding and knowledge, but we're also making sure that we're enhancing student protective factors. And so these are student questions. I know, and you can see below, how to prevent myself or others from becoming victims. There is a human trafficking hotline again, that we have what we have the right to do as humans, and how to say no or stop when something isn't right. Always in the gold, wanting to see those outcomes of I know going up and increasing, and then the actions I'll take. And again, how do we help to see if our students are understanding behaviorally what they need to change in order to be able to keep themselves safe and protected? So it create emotional distance, physical distance. Think that they're controlling me, definitely tell a trusted adult, or think that none of it's my business, right? So all of those you can see are outcomes that we're seeing as we deliver this curriculum to our students. Okay, next. And then the beautiful thing about the collective is that we have quantitative data, but we also have qualitative data. We're able to capture thousands of stories that share really from the counselor or from the teacher, from the administrator, yard duty, or cafeteria staff, what they're learning and what they see to be change in as they roll this out. So this was an educator who actually was during COVID and knew that trusting relationships was going to look a little different online, but that they knew their role in interacting with their students. Okay, next slide. And then this is another piece of the collective that I just love sharing, and that is that we've taken the qualitative data and we've actually made it quantitative. And that happens because we actually take the thousands of stories that we have, which this next slide you'll see before you go on. The next one is we've taken 1,216 stories, and we've actually used Python and natural language processing to put the qualitative stories into these 5 buckets. So gratitude, are they expressing gratitude in their sentiment? Are they expressing the role of technology in trafficking or intended behavioral change that they'll personally make? So this is that sentiment analysis. And if you'll go to the next slide, please. And this actually shows, of those 1,216 stories of qualitative data, we've turned into quantitative data by saying that 61% of our stories indicates behavior change. Pretty cool. 36% mention technology. So really pushing the envelope with data and being able to analyze not only our quantitative numbers of where we're making impact, but also our qualitative stories and making sure that we can look at those for impact as well. Next slide. And that's it.
Ashley, you did amazing getting all of that data fire hosed out to us. I'm so impressed with your ability to time. So as Ashley said, the data she shared was from findings from the Protect curriculum, No More being the second of the 3. And No More is a drama-based presentation where the curriculum is wound in between a dramatic presentation that shows the progression of a high school girl who's being groomed by a boyfriend pimp and ultimately exploited. And so it shows that progression and the reality that it's happening under the eyes and ears of her teacher, her mother, and her friends, but they don't know what they're looking at. So we're teaching the children to start to pay attention to what is it that they're actually seeing and what to do about it. And No More was based on the belief that students are going to respond best and retain their learning most when we use creative mediums, when we have direct interaction with the material, and when it's facilitated by a peer. So that's what we kind of call the magic of No More, are those 3 elements. And the multimedia approach really captures the student's interest and provides a sophisticated and comprehensive course towards awareness and prevention. So what we did with the No More curriculum early on is as we talk about, in California, we have a mandate for human trafficking prevention education at both the middle school and high school levels. But as we all know, often and most often, mandates come without the funding. And so an unfunded mandate is really a tricky thing because it creates a lot of barriers. So one of the primary priorities of the collective has been to really look at what are our barriers and how do we lower them. One of the ways we did that was with the No More curriculum. We went in with, because this came out of the university, we were able to work with our School of Education and our faculty to look at California learning standards and align the curriculum to California standards so that we could take that as one barrier to lower, as we know that teachers are continuing to have things put onto their plate of what they have to do, what they have to teach, what they have to present every year. But if we can also bring the mandate, the education about the mandate, along with the fact that we're, in addition to that, still meeting California teaching standards, it's one way to build credibility around the program. So that is the why behind why we did it. And oops, did I jump? So how we did it, like I said, we consulted with our School of Ed faculty. They evaluated the curriculum as it related to the standards, and the state mandate really opens the door, but we have found many other barriers to it. So connecting the content to standards helps build credibility, and it gives us one more tool to gain access. So we looked at 4 areas for standards as we did the alignment, and we communicate this when we go out to schools. We actually communicate this in our information packet so they know going in the door that our content meets these standards. So the first one we looked at is the history and social science framework and content standards, where we looked at how the research, how No More is research-based and a relevant subject matter that underscores the crisis of human trafficking and addresses the priority that schools and school districts have placed on preventing it to our most vulnerable youth. Then we looked at the visual and performing arts content standards, which is the assertion that No More, using the assertion that No More explores ideas and subject matter utilizing the arts to cultivate the essential skills of problem solving, creative thinking, effective planning, teamwork, and self-expression. I'm not going to read all of this. You can access the full PowerPoint later, but this was how we then explained the alignment of the standard. The third one was English language arts content standards. So with the assertion that No More develops a student's academic language abilities, and that while it provides vital and necessary information, it actually also includes activities that develop a student's academic language abilities, hone their analytical skills, and provide support for English language development through the engagement with the curriculum. It's a very interactive, not just observing, but actually the students interact with the program. And then finally, the California standards for the teaching profession, using the assertion that No More provides effective instruction using research-based teaching methods that make subject matter meaningful to students. So again, going off of this student-centered pedagogy, that learning experiences are more effective when they incite curiosity and sensory learning, and have activities that are engaging and effective and promoting social development, critical thinking, reflection, and connecting ideas across content areas. So this is just one way that we worked to create more credibility and buy-in for our programs across the region as we work together to get the 3 curriculums as far and wide as possible. I'm going to kick it to Mary Ellen Barrett from the District Attorney's Office now, because really the power behind this partnership really is the fact that it's a public-private partnership. So Mary Ellen, tell us more about that.
Thank you, Kim. So obviously the San Diego DA's office is the public part of this. And if you heard Summer this morning, you know that she herself is a force of nature. But now that she's DA, we have both, right? We have the personality that will help drive it forward, but we also have her office that helps drive it forward. and her reputation as a fierce advocate for victims of all crimes, honestly, and also for public safety. In addition, right, she's the top law enforcement official in the county, which carries weight. So the two of those, both her position and her personality, combine to command respect and attention. And that's part of the beauty of all of this, is getting the attention, right? Because school districts are all government agencies, right? As is the DA's office. And these government agencies talk to each other. And they talk to each other about more than just us, right? Just human trafficking. They're having conversations about other school safety issues. So then we're able to add this training that is mandated, right? That is legally required, and say, add it to the list of what they're already talking about. So you're not reinventing the wheel. You have a connection already with the superintendents, especially with the County Office of Education, with Superintendent Goppel. They speak often on issues affecting our students and affecting public safety. So when she is calling him, he's going to pick up the phone, and likewise, of course, and we are able to get this out and get the assistance from the County Office of Ed, which from the beginning has been tremendous. Charisma de los Reyes, Vela de Mora, and Mara Madrigal-Weiss have been tremendous allies in helping us get the message out, but also helping open doors for us. In addition, we know that some schools have school resource officers, and of course the police and the DA, it's a natural fit. One of the examples is we have a school safety summit, the second school safety summit coming up. Jim Kelly from my office is arranging that, and he also works with the Collective. And in that school safety summit, the first one and now this one, superintendents will be there. And that is another way to access them beyond like a cold call, right? Which I know has been successful, but this just makes it a little bit easier. And it'll be addressing all sorts of other issues like truancy, like fentanyl, like what's happening at our border. So but we'll have a seat in the room, right? And to be able to bring that in. And again, you're plugging into an existing framework, not trying to create something out of nothing. We don't have to struggle to get on the agenda to the extent that we need to get into the school boards, right, to get approval, or if they want to talk about it or whatever it is. If Summer's going to speak, if she wants to speak, she's going to speak, right? They're going to let her speak. People want to hear from the top law enforcement official in the I shouldn't say officer, official in the county. Next slide. The other part is with the DA's office, we already had resources available. And again, to plug in, to take the burden of trying to reinvent everything off of right, there's never enough resources. So the more that you can tap into what's already there, the better off you are. We have the care center, which was already plugged into the schools in one of our under-resourced areas in the county and has been there for years. During COVID, they were delivering food to people when the schools were shut down. So they're in the community and they can help advise and help make those connections. We also have community partnership prosecutors, which is new under Summer. And there are 4, the county is divided up right into fourths. And each one of them, among their other duties, has gone to the superintendents of each of our 42 school districts, 43 if you count the Office of Education, and sat down and spoken with them, either with the superintendent or assistant or someone in power there, and said, what are your concerns? What are your issues? How can we help? And when the community partnership prosecutors are informed of what the Trafficking Prevention Collective is, they are able to offer it as a resource, as well as vouch for it. Like Kim was saying, it's aligned with standards, right? It's not just something somebody made up. It's a legitimate required training. And for example, one of the problems is truancy, right? If kids aren't in school, what's happening to them? Well, one of the solutions is to talk to them about trafficking, to not have them fall into the trafficking, right? Because we've had examples of students missing Friday and Mondays because they're on their way to Vegas for the weekend. And that's what happens in San Diego County. We can also use some of our resources, our financial resources, printing, that sort of thing. And then again, I'm going to mention Jim Kelly again for the technical assistance, for making our products look professional. We call them one-pagers, our informational sheets, for helping put on our Teachers Academy, when we had to go virtual. All of that is available already. In addition, having the DA's office involved, I think is the voice of reality, right? That we know the research. We know what's happening. We know from the Point Loma Nazarene study and USD study, we know that 100% of the high schools studied had indicia of grooming going on. We know that 90% of the high schools had active cases. And then with the DA's office, I can say, in your area, this is what just happened. I have the link with law enforcement as well, to be able to say, not only are your kids in danger, but the task force just in this last year, up till now, has arrested over 290 buyers, right? So it's happening in your city. It's going on. So that can bring the dose of, like I said, the dose of reality. What I found is the superintendents seem to know what's going on, and this just underscores what's happening. So what were our biggest challenges? This top one on getting them to follow the law was a surprise to me, right? It's the challenge of the unfunded mandate, but now we have the funding, basically. We can give it to you for free. And in my world, I'm a rule follower. I like the law, right? I'm a lawyer and a rule follower. How can you not follow the law? And that was a mind change that we had to adjust to that. And the trickle down, as Stacy said, right, that each district is its own kingdom, right? Own superintendent, which is great because then they can address the local needs of what their students need in that jurisdiction. But it's 42 different ways of approaching things. And then even in the larger districts, when the superintendent's in support, you still have assistant superintendents and area superintendents, and then you have principals, and the principals control the school, which again makes sense. I want my school tailored to my area and my child's needs, but that is a many different layers that even getting to the school board doesn't take away those layers. But what we've been able to do is find champions at the school level. So teachers are talking to teachers, which is very, very helpful. And then informing them of the need for prevention education, as they are mandated reporters, but you can't report what you don't know. And expressing and explaining, and child welfare has partnered with us, and this has been a great help, that by reporting, you can get that vulnerable student help. You can stop it before it starts instead of having to play catch up, and explaining the systems, and again, how the systems work together for the benefit of the child. And that, I think there's been more, but those are some of the highlights. So thank you, Kim. You're on mute.
I'm getting tired after
Yep.
5 hours straight. Yes, so this is great. We're doing wonderful on time, so we'll have some time for questions, and they are coming in. So please, if you have questions, continue asking them, because we will have a good 10 minutes for that. So in closing, we're going to just kind of go down the line here and share our 4 sort of top closing thoughts. The first one being, we've learned that we go farther when we go together. Who's next?
I'll go
Ashley?
ahead.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead. So I think that, one of the things that, as you look at these 3 programs, which, and when we talk about the collective, I often see the collective as a mosaic, right? We have this beautiful mosaic that has all different types of colors and this image that runs through it. And yet, and with that, these 3 programs come together, right? And we could have been one picture in of ourselves, but when you put the 3 programs together, it really is this beautiful baton handoff, but also image that comes really clear through for San Diego County. And so I think that for 3 Strands Global Foundation, we can deliver, protect in the world. But the reality is when we have a collective that we can hand the baton to and work together with, we actually go further. And I'll give you just this one anecdotal piece. When we're in a school district in San Diego, and let's say that 3 Strands doesn't have the relationship, but Point Loma, no more has the relationship. When Kim goes in and says, "Hey, I have this collective impact program that includes 3 programs and can really wrap around holistically your kids and your staff," then the conversation starts and the baton gets to be passed between programs, whether it's Roots or No More or Protect. But ultimately, from the collective's perspective, we've just wrapped around that school district and we really delivered on not only impact, but we've also delivered on prevention holistically. So I think that's just an example of how we go farther when we go together.
Great example. Mary Ellen, tell us about our second closing thought. Running a collective impact project takes startup time. That's been definitely one of our big lessons learned over the last 3 years.
Yes, absolutely. And again, I go back to my perspective of it's the law. You have to do it. We're making it easier. This is free. Sign up. Like I just thought it would be, we'd have scheduling issues, not convincing issues. But it's like a startup business. As a startup, you need to get the name out there, even though it's all, aligned with the standards and everything. You need to start. And then with school systems, if you're not in there by August, the chances of you getting a date to train teachers anywhere in the next year is slim to none. Mm-hmm. Right? Like maybe, and we're getting better at that. But that was a huge learning point that with the school year, and then don't talk to them after May. Yeah. Right? It's done. And it's all, again, understandable. It's just a rhythm that I don't think we knew about, and certainly I was not familiar with.
Mm-hmm. Stacy, tell us about this one. Balancing donor requirements with reality on the ground can be challenging because we are 100% donor funded in this project.
We are, and we're grateful for the support of our donors, of all of our donors. And I think that they have certain standards and requirements and expectations for us to fulfill. And then we hit, as I think we've all pointed out, and Mary Ellen, you pointed out some of the realities of what it looks like on the ground, or things that we're not aware of. And so I think we're constantly at this space of, looking at what we know, pivoting, iteration, and there is that process that needs to happen. And so you really have to balance that out with, having the conversation with our donors and having them understand what does it look like on the ground that we're actually facing, but also still supporting what the requirements that they have for us. So, it's a bit of a dance, I would say. And, we're trying to do it very eloquently.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you, Stacey. And Ashley, wind us up with this last one, that the pandemic has handed us a lot of challenges, but also opportunities. Tell us a little bit about that in closing.
Yeah.
Questions.
Yeah, I think that, we often talk about being flexible and agile, right? And I think in this movement, this anti-trafficking movement, we've had to do that, right? This isn't even something that was discussed or even the term was known 20 years ago. And so as the pandemic came, the good news is that we all have been moving and being flexible and agile because we've had to understand what this crime really looks like and to be led by survivors and lived experience experts. So we've had to be agile and flexible as we've found the impact space. So as the pandemic hit, in this space as a collective, we had to do that too. Protect was already doing online with our program, but we had to actually adjust with our curriculum because our teachers weren't with our kids. With No More and with Roots, those were in person and really impactful after school as well as the drama. And so the No More and Roots programs had to be able to figure out digitally and online, how do we deliver these programs when the pandemic hit too. So I think that as a collective, I would tell you that that we leaned into those strengths of being flexible and agile, but that we also had to be able to meet people where they're at. Mary Ellen just talked about the challenge of education, and yet at the same time, the opportunity of knowing that teacher champions and people who believe more than anything in the world that they are the conduit to actually make the difference in the life of a child. And so the pandemic really also helped us to see those champions and be able to really build relationship with those champions in schools to say, hey, we want to make sure that we invest in you and empower you to make this happen even after the pandemic ends. So lots of different learnings from the pandemic, that we had to go digital, that we had to be able to lean into champions who really on the ground and digitally were connecting with students, but also holistically as a collective to be able to look at ourselves and look what was working and not working too.
Great, wonderful. Let's we have some time now to go into questions, and I'm trying to work 3 screens, so I hope I do this right. Here we go. So got a comment at the very top of the hour about any chance we can get the collective impact visual. Yes, we will. I will put this PowerPoint onto this session description. So we're happy to have you use it for reference. I know that the standards alignments, some of it we had to go through so quickly because we had so much information. So yes, absolutely. And then we had more of a comment that said, has this been shared with larger or other efforts to combat human trafficking? For example, there's a parent coalition to end human trafficking. So yes, I mean, as Ashley mentioned, Protect is actually not just in San Diego, it's all over the country. And we have, as our funders approached us very early on with not only how do you make this sustainable in San Diego, but how do you scale it? So it's been something we've been talking about and looking at all along, is how do we take what we've learned in San Diego and provide it as a resource outside of San Diego. So Protect is off and running and was outside of San Diego before they even came to San Diego, but is now spreading across the country. And we're actively pursuing efforts with No More to make it available outside of San Diego also. And I know so is Roots. So that is a part of our work. I'm going to jump to the questions. I may need a little help because I'm just jumping around on so many different screens. If one of you in there can read, one of the 3 of you can see the questions while I'm trying to navigate, and that would be helpful. I have someone coming to help me, but
sure.
Log back in. Questions.
There was something about involvement with survivors.
Oh yes, okay, I got them back. Thank you for saving me there. Let's see. Yeah, so survivor involvement is a great question. And that's been a part of, Stacey, you can speak to how we are integrating that in the collective work. No More was actually built on the foundation of survivor voice and is actually always facilitated with a survivor present, and part of the facilitation, it's a core value to the program, but we are continuing to look at as a collective. I know all 3 programs are survivor informed. So how do we continue to do that? I don't know if anyone has anything else to say about that.
Yeah, I would agree with what you're saying, Kim. And, I think when I was speaking about our collective table, we talk as a collective of who is missing from our collective table. And one, I would say the strongest that came up, and even in an internal evaluation, was around survivor leadership. And so we have really been working to bring survivors to the table, to bring their voices and their leadership to our collective table. That has been an active part of our work. And through I think we discussed before that the San Diego County Office of Education was awarded the H-type grant, demonstration grant. And within that space, they were able to hire a survivor leader who is, working very closely with that grant, but also in other activities across the region. So that's really, bringing that leadership to the table, I think, is incredibly important.
Ashley, here's a one that's specific to Protect, but we've also had conversations in the collective about this, and that is, has the teacher curriculum ever been adapted to use with parents or caregivers? So is it just for teachers?
Yeah, great. No, actually, we do have a parent version. And so absolutely can be, it's already been adapted. So if that's something that's of interest to you, then we can get that to you guys and more information about that. Yeah, so the Protect program has our K-12, but we also have different pathways of increasing knowledge about trafficking, not only to corporations, but social services, law enforcement, and parents too.
Great. And one good, somebody asked about referencing the information. Like I said, we will put the PowerPoint presentation in, but please also visit our website, which is sandiegotpc.org. sandiegotpc.org is the San Diego Trafficking Prevention Collective's website. It gives information on all 3 programs and ways to contact us, and always interested in talking to other folks. Somebody pointed out something absolutely true, and that is that they said talking about the No More program, this reminds me of the Theater of the Oppressed, Augusto Boal and Paulo Freire. Yes, No More is built on the concept of Theater of the Oppressed or social justice theater, and it is the magic behind it is the fact that it is based on the premise that the students who are participating and observing and participating in the presentation of the curriculum can actually change the outcome of the story. So we empower the students who are watching to actually interrupt the drama, and based on what they're learning in the curriculum, then change the trajectory for Amanda. It's really powerful to watch that happen. When you take what you're teaching a student, you watch them integrate it and then turn it into actual physical action where they raise their hand and stop the drama, but then where they actually come up and participate in what would a different response of her friend been, for example, when she's noticed Amanda chatting with an older guy. So yes, Theater of the Oppressed is the core behind No More. Let's see, I think that might be all of our questions. Do we have any other questions? I know we have had the fire hose on you. So any other thoughts? We did talk about survivor leadership. Yes. Okay. Any other thoughts?
I just wanted to add along the survivor leadership is there is an incredibly strong network here in San Diego of survivor leaders who have been incredibly supportive to our collective work, throughout our 3+ years. So, we're really grateful to their leadership who, have flowed in and out whenever there has been requests of support, and have also supported all of our curriculums as well, to review our curriculums and, make sure that it has that survivor lens. So, we're really grateful to this incredible group here.
We were talking about that earlier in the day. They're kind of all blending together for me at this point, but I think it was, so I'm not sure which session it was that I was in, but we were talking about survivors. Oh, it was actually opening session, moving the needle. And when I reflect on the No More program, we've had over 85 students come forward and ask to talk to someone after seeing the No More program. Now, this doesn't mean we had 85 children that were trafficked, but we have actually had actively trafficked students come forward, most of whom did not recognize themselves as being trafficked. They thought they were making bad choices. They didn't understand what they were involved in until they saw it in front of them being played out. And those 85+ students who've come forward have sometimes asked for, who, like I said, directly were being either groomed or trafficked, or potentially in other abusive situations, or had concerns about a parent or a friend or family member. But I will say, hands down, the reason why those students came forward is primarily because we've always had a survivor in the room. So part of it is the peer facilitation of the curriculum, where it's peers presenting it. But really, the biggest moment of power that you feel in the program is when the students recognize about halfway through that what's being taught is being taught to them by a survivor who's lived through it. And that lowers this, it creates a sense of safety and lowers a barrier in the room that has led to kids stepping forward and asking for help, which is not something we even knew going into it. It is meant as a prevention curriculum, but it's been an intervention tool in the process. So survivors have been 100% key to the work that we're doing. Yes, we have about 2 minutes if anyone wants to throw a last question in here. Otherwise, we can go ahead and end our time together. Really thankful for the three of you. We've been through a lot. It's been hard work, but we've had some wonderful moments. And I know that it's something I'll never forget, getting to be a part of Collective Impact. I've been involved in multiple Collective Impact projects. This one, like Mary Ellen, you said, I think we all had an idea with the mandate and then the magic, the huge gift of the funding. We didn't anticipate some of the barriers that we faced, but through persistence and tenacity and creativity, largely represented by the three of you and the teams that you lead, we have really come a long way in the last 3 years and are really looking at finishing this particular grant strong in this next year and looking towards the future for what's next, knowing that we have to keep working together to try to get to as many kids as possible to prevent them from being exploited. So thank you all for joining us today. And you can take a stretch break and hopefully stick with us for just a couple more hours and jump into the afternoon sessions. We have 2 parts, afternoon part 1 and afternoon part 2, with continuing with the 4 pathways, and then a really interesting wrap-up session where we're going to be talking about demand reduction and the things that have to go along with demand reduction to make it effective. So I hope that you will enjoy the rest of your time with us today, and thank you for being here.